Hi there, and welcome. This is a recap of today's class for Tuesday, September 15th, 2020 in English Language Arts at Hanby Middle School. So today's class began, as every class begins, by looking at Google Classroom in the planner. I have opened today's class in Google Classroom, and what I noted with students is before class begins, open each of today's resources in a separate tab. In today's class, we'll review the rules of email etiquette, send an email, and have time for independent reading. We did not indeed have time for independent reading, although I would encourage you to do your 30 minutes per day outside of class. Okay, so from here we move to the planner. And if you were in class, you would have had time to copy down the planner and also the homework and due dates coming up. So if you're watching this on a screen afterwards, if you would pause your video for a moment here and record this information in your planner. Know that your goal today is to be able to craft and send an appropriate email. You have your intro jam from yesterday's class, and you have the email that you are sending me due tomorrow. If we go down into warm up where we still have announcements, it says focus on getting a reading book this week. You should be reading at least 30 minutes daily. And you have a Google Meets goal this week to demonstrate awareness of your audience. So if you're in class, we're really focused on, having your face visible in the screen, free from distractions. You want to have your face lit up. And we also had to do in many of the classes a little bit of review on using the Google Chat appropriately and making sure that that is only for teacher-directed things and not just because you have something that you want to say. Okay, from here, we moved to our email etiquette. This can be found in the 8th grade website under Team Links down at the bottom, and email etiquette. And I presented this in class as a Pear Deck presentation. Today, we're just going to look at it and review the main aspects of it. So before we go any further, I want to talk about the reasons why I am teaching this on email etiquette. And so this is one of those skills that when you move, through adolescence, which means going from being a child and being treated as a child to wanting to be accepted as an adult. One of the parts of that passage is that you have to learn how to act and speak like an adult at the same time. And email is a form of communication that it's very often associated with adulthood, right? It's a little bit more formal. It's less casual. It's not texting. It's not Instagram. It's not Snapchat. It's not, TikTok. It's a more deliberate and official form of communication. And so making sure that you are using email correctly and presenting yourself correctly goes a long way towards other people taking you seriously. So you'll use email in your official District 6 capacity throughout your time in middle and high school. You will likely use email to apply for your first job. You will likely use email to apply for college scholarships and submit your applications and things like that. So knowing what you're doing, knowing how to present yourself so that it makes you look good and responsible in all of those scenarios is really important. An employer will absolutely judge you based on your initial contact. Okay, so that's what we're thinking about. That's what we're looking about. So going forward here, we started with a quote, and this came from a job training and job posting site called Indeed.com. And it says, the way that you communicate reflects the type of person you are, your work ethic, professionalism, and attention to detail. If you were in class, I would ask you, and if you're looking at this now, I would ask you to pause for a minute, maybe pause the video for a second and think about that. The way that you communicate reflects the type of person you are. How do you think that's going to be in your life this year? Okay. How are people going to judge you based on how you communicate? Think about that. Okay. Moving on, we reviewed the 3 rules of email etiquette. Use correct formatting, be direct, and be professional. The first one is using correct formatting. So here in this slide, we look at the different parts of an email message. The to, that's where you send the address, the subject, and then the body of the email where you type what you're trying to say. There are formatting tools down at the bottom that you can use. We talked about with subject, and if you look at this, there is a professional example and a not professional example. But the key is that the subject is like a 2 to 5 word preview of what the main point of your email message is. So you do not want to type your entire message into the subject. That doesn't necessarily work. Okay. Your salutation, that's how you direct it. Just like, and if you look on the left for what is professional, writing the person's name followed by a colon, that works. Writing the person's name followed by a hyphen or dash, that works as well. Okay, something more casual like Yo Newman or Hey Teacher, yeah, probably not the best way to start. Okay. So the body of your email is the part that's where you type the main part of it. If you think about that in writing, it's like the paragraph, right? In an essay, what are your body paragraphs? And so in the body, that's where you want to use correct grammar and punctuation. You want to make sure you're capitalizing. You have correct end of sentence punctuation. Your sentences aren't two run-ons. And you can see here, there's a professional and a not professional, or a correct one on the left, maybe one that could use a little bit more improvement on the right. Okay. All right. Finally, you want to end your message with a signature. So you write your salutation, you type your message, and then you sign it. Make sure that you sign it with your first and last name. One of the biggest complaints I get from high school teachers is they say, what's up with students only putting their first name on their page? And I say, we've been working on that with them for 3 years. So I agree with you. What is the big deal with that? And why can't they do that? So again, email is the same thing. It's kind of a formal thing, first and last name, especially when you're addressing a teacher or the principal or someone else in the district. Okay, the second part of our presentation here is be direct. And in this one, you really want to make sure that your first sentence in your email says what you want. Looking on the left side, okay, my first sentence, I'm hoping to raise my grade to an A. On the right side, it's important to do good in school. Okay, so the left side is direct. You're telling the reader of the email right away, what is it that you need? On the right side, I have to read for a long time before I figure out what that person is trying to say. So you want to make sure that you are direct and to the point in your email. Okay. Finally, you want to be professional, and this is probably the section that is the hardest for young people to grasp. Not because you don't intend to be, but because you're speaking a different language here. You have your kind of formal, your communication that you do with your friends, and that is something that is very, familiar to you. And now you're stepping out of that and you're going into someone else's. So one rule of thumb is you always want to make sure that you are polite in your email. If you're angry, don't send an email because you can't take it back. There's no Control-Z or undo that unsends your email. If you send something that's, a little bit irrational, like you own it. Down below, we have polite and not polite. It's on the same topic. You can look at the examples there. Okay. You also want to avoid distracting images in your emails. Okay. So you including, a photograph or something that you're working on outside of the subject, probably not appropriate. I've got kind of a silly example with My Little Pony down below. But seriously, asking someone to like your YouTube channel or to subscribe or whatever that is, like while you're sending, your science teacher an email about cell structure, probably not going to be the best thing in terms of professionalism. Okay. Finally, you want to avoid distracting content. And this is what you want to remember. Adults don't use emojis. Okay, we do. We've got 5 of them. We've got the the person crying, they're crying with laughter. Mr. Dipple loves that one. He usually does 3 in a row. Okay, we've got someone winking, we have someone smiling, and we have someone crying because they're sad. And that's it. We just use faces. If you're using something other than that, you're probably under about age 35, and most of your teachers aren't. Okay, and so you just want to remember that emojis are kind of that's something you put in text messages, not something you put in an email. When you write in all caps, that's like you're yelling. So if I look at the not professional one, that's like that person is saying, that quiz was way too hard, they're really yelling at me. Okay, you don't need to do that. Okay, that's kind of that be polite thing. Try not to yell in an email. Okay, the final reminder, and this is something that is often hard for people in your age bracket, which is 1 exclamation point is enough. So if you put 3 or 4 afterwards, it's just kind of it goes above and beyond. It drives the point beyond where it needs to be. I know that you probably have this trigger finger that's part of, going through adolescence that, when you go to hit the exclamation point, it goes, and it keeps doing it. And you have to be like, okay, I'm going to back that off. But remember 1 exclamation point at a time. Okay. All right. You've got this. In class, we looked at a few examples, But for you to go forward, you now have an assignment. And that assignment, and this is all in Google Classroom. So the email etiquette assignment is right here, and you can click on that and look at it. But your assignment is you are going to assume that you are in this scenario. So I'm your language arts teacher. There's about 1 week remaining in the trimester. You are not the incredibly responsible and driven person that you are. You are instead the person who's listed here. And so with about 1 week remaining in the trimester, you check your grades. And you notice that there are 2 assignments, the About Me response and the Chapter 2 summary. And both of those are missing in Student View. And you're like, I'm pretty sure I turned those in. Okay, so you need to put yourself in that scenario. You are going to send me an email. You're going to do this going to your District 6 email account. You'll log in and send your email. You want to make sure that you format it correctly. So you have correct subject. You have a salutation. You have it correctly formatted. You sign it with your first and last name. And then you're going to send it to me. Okay. So I grade the assignment. It's worth 12 points. You get 4 points each for formatting, being direct, and being professional. And that is due before the end of the day tomorrow, Wednesday, September 16th. So good job today. Good luck. And let me know if you need my help. All right. Thanks.